Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick,
And I'm Paul.
and there's a third, and I'm
And
give it,
I'm here. I'm Ben.
and that's Ben. And what we're going to do, in case you can't tell from our unusual screen today, there's three of us. Look at this. Eventually, we're going full Brady Bunch, and we're going to have squares everywhere with people. But yeah, we're doing a D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves movie special spectacular. Paul, explain why there's a third person here and who they are.
So, as you know, was just I am part of another channel
Cheating on me.
called Homebrew, and yeah, cheating on you. And this is Ben. He is the DM of Homebrew and also the co-creator, producer, master, which is great storyteller. Which is and just finished off our new Homebrew or Hibernia arc, but yeah, so we decided to ask Ben to join us on this D&D movie review. So welcome, Ben.
Hello, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I bring no movie knowledge and even less D&D knowledge, but I am here.
You bring more than you know, because up until now, obviously, Paul knows his D&D. Me not so much. You know your D&D. Me not so much. But thanks to both of you, I've been watching your channel and I've been learning about D&D over the last 4 years. You guys have been at it 4 years. Back when we did a Dublin Comic Con interview round, we actually interviewed you and who else was there?
Wes.
It was
Wes.
just you and Wes, wasn't it? Which, by the way, link in the up top corner here. You guys were talking about getting that off the ground. Well, my God, you got it off the ground and you finished your first full campaign. So congratulations to you guys. As far as this movie goes, there's only two things that everybody wants to know watching this stream right now or watching it in the future. Did you like the movie as people, let's say, as yourselves? But how did you feel about the movie as D&D folk in the online D&D community? So I'm going to start with just what did we all think about the movie?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a fun romp. It was an escapist movie. So Ben.
Yeah, same. I really enjoyed it. It's like a definition popcorn flick, like a good time for the family. I brought my wife. She doesn't play D&D. She doesn't know a lot about D&D. I might get into her level a little bit later as we talk about it. But we both left going, that was a really nice date night.
It was awesome. Fun is because you're trying to work out how you're going to encapsulate a movie in 5 words or less, and this one is like, it's just classic cinema fun. It really is. If you watch the trailer and you enjoy the trailer, you're going to enjoy the movie. It's one of those times the trailer doesn't misrepresent the movie. If anything, actually, if anybody's thinking that it's going to be full on. Either Lord of the Rings or, the Lannisters, you're going to get into all that kind of stuff. It's not. It's the old style, hey, we're going on a bit of an adventure, fun movie. There's very little that I was trying to find things to pick on about it, because that's always more fun on the internet to be mean. And honestly, I couldn't. Myself and my wife saw it. She absolutely loved it. It's, of all the movies I've seen this year, it's actually the most enjoyable cinema experience I've had. And that's not just because Quantumania and other things were crap. I'd seen John Wick the week before. Dungeons and Dragons stood up quite nicely and actually came out of the theatre probably happier. And John Wick was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to see John Wick yet, but I think I agree. My partner was also just like, this is really funny because we're also talking about our partners kind of thing, and it's just like, not our own feelings. But she really enjoyed it and said that it's actually the best thing that's come out for even with the Marvel stuff, because the Marvel stuff has been kind of lower, which would, I think, has benefited the movie in a lot of ways. That like the string of Marvel films haven't been great. That this is a nice escapist kind of like alternative franchise. And let's be honest, if it succeeds as well as it seems to be,
Yeah.
this could be easily turned into a franchise where we follow this party for a while on different adventures that are just crazy.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, it was just really enjoyable. That's the thing. It reminded me of Maverick, where it was just an escapist film where I didn't have to think about too much or anything like that.
And
And
I'm not a fantasy guy, and like I say, everything I know about D&D I've learned from you guys and a cartoon from when I was a kid, an animated series, which will come up later on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, I can say honestly, I want more of these. I don't care if it's called Dungeons and Dragons or if it's called Honor Among Thieves or if it's called whatever. It was a great adventure, a great kind of, that overused phrase, they don't make them like they used to. Well, I can't remember a film in the last 10 years that felt like this.
I have a theory about that, and I think it's because the film, this is going to sound like very internet, but it lived within its own truth, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is what is true in the world remains true in the world. They weren't too concerned with an audience.
No.
It's like, this is a story that's happening. You can kind of believe it happening to those people because there was not like a lot of common modern movies have someone in the room while they're being made to go, but what about the middle belt? And this movie seemed to have avoided that overhand of an executive.
Yeah.
And I think it benefited from it. And I think that's potentially where some of the Marvel stuff has left that itch to scratch that we're wanting.
Agreed,
Yeah.
for sure. Sorry,
yeah,
Paul.
very true. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah, it does feel like it's not dumbing down, it's not pandering to a community, it's not holding anyone's hand. So like, which is good. I was worried that it was going to be like too focused towards D&D, the D&D community more, and which would be worrying. Because like, yeah, you could be just like, hey, it felt more like that they were just like, we sprinkled in some Easter eggs that like, the D&D community are really going to go, oh, that's really cool. But in no way are they important enough that like, not people who aren't familiar with the content and stuff isn't going to be like, because I don't know that, am I missing something important? And it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little thing for us, but it's in no way indicative to the plot or anything like that, which is nice. It didn't have that executive going, well, we need to explain that because the people who don't like D&D or don't know D&D will not know what that is. And it's kind of like, well, it's not important. They know what a thief is. They know what like a barbarian, a fighter, and like, what paladin does. So, it doesn't matter that they didn't know the race, the Red Wizards, and the history of like in the background of D&D for them. It was just
I didn't.
Yeah, like
I played the game for 15 years. I'm like, oh, these seem like a big deal.
yeah, like that's the thing, because there's also a main time, like there's a main timeline and storyline within the actual D&D that you play through modules, and you play like, so there's an actual grand history there, but like most people homebrew or do their own thing and then maybe pop into an out of like one shot kind of games. So, but it wasn't important for them to be just like, yeah, the Red Wizards are evil. They have their own country that they've essentially enslaved. All this. They were just like, yeah, Red Wizards are bad, and this ritual, which is important, is there. So, like, they didn't really kind of dumb anything down, which was great.
And all of its exposition was done with a very light touch quite quickly. They did a lot of show, don't tell. There was it. It's a longer movie than you'd think. Like I checked the runtime after, not before, because I was like, was that a 90-minute movie? Did they manage to make like the classic 90-minute movie? No, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes long, but it feels like a 90-minute movie because it skips along. It just lifts itself. It picks it doesn't get bogged down, and like I say, it's exposition. Everything it's explaining to you is done with a nice light touch of, we're doing this as part of the story right now. We're not pandering to anybody. And here's one for both of you, because I think it's really unfortunate that the Mario film is coming out this weekend, because that's going to kill second weekend for Dungeons and Dragons. And from what I've heard, the early reviews for Mario, and this is no offense, all you Nintendo fans and all you Mario fans, we all know that the basic story behind Mario games is pretty damn basic, pretty simple. It's basically people fighting over a princess. And yes, okay, there's bad. Okay, whoops, we just forgot to do something on our Zoom there. You'll see it live in a minute, folks. But it's so weird that everybody's saying the problem with the Mario movie is Nintendo fans will love it, Mario fans will love it, because it is essentially fan service aplenty with no story. To which I kind of say, well, Mario isn't exactly story heavy. Now, the converse or the opposite of that in the case of Dungeons and Dragons here, there's so much that they could have just done for fan service. But Ben, like you said, that wasn't their focus. They lived in their own world. They told their own truth. They went with their own story. And as things came and as things happened, stuff went over my head, I'm sure, that meant something to somebody else. I have no idea what Baldur's Gate is other than a game, because I heard that name before. I don't know if it's more significant in the D&D community or not. You guys can tell me if it's something that means something. But when they said it, I was like, I know there was a game called that at some stage. So maybe it means something to somebody.
I have a question for you, Patrick, because I kind of considered this, and I what I loved about the movie was they also know moviegoers. So guaranteed, if you have those questions, there's someone there, or someone, even if you don't have those questions, there's always someone in a movie, especially if you watch at home, going, do you know he actually broke his foot during that take? So you will have a D&D person going, do you know that spell is actually called this?
Yeah.
And so the explaining will be done in the way in which we consume movies. That's going to be the case. But even if this is a springboard into wanting to know more about D&D, I think there's something rewarding happening to people if they've gone in completely fresh. As you flick through the book and go, oh, Baldur's Gate, that's Baldur's Gate. And there's a sense of discover yourself. And is that something, like, obviously as they make more movies, they'll flesh out that bigger picture. But for you, not knowing what Baldur's Gate is, were you at all sort of going, maybe I'll look that up afterwards? Or you're like, you know what, I don't need to know.
It was said so naturally as a line, as part of it felt like a line in the script where if somebody said, take me to Nakatomi Plaza when they step into the back of a limo, I don't have to know what Nakatomi Plaza is. Years later, I'll never be able to forget what Nakatomi Plaza is because what happened that fateful day. But again, it was so natural as part of the script. It didn't seem like something that was being shoved at me going, do you get what this is going to mean or what it's referenced? It was just completely natural. So I think, building up that stack of 5 words to describe, fun and natural, definitely fit the bill. Because, nothing felt like it was... I didn't feel like I was missing anything at any point. And that's important. That's very important.
Yeah, because that was as I said, that was my worry, was they were going to make it too focused towards getting the community into the door. Because I know what Baldur's Gate is, I know what Neverwinter is. It was kind of one of those things. I know what the spells. It's like, as Ben said, I know I'm that person who's just like, well, Baldur's Gate is actually, kind of thing. But like, it was really refreshing to be just like, oh, one thing is, I don't feel like I have to explain those things. I didn't have to lean over to my partner and just be like, well, by the way, that's really important actually, because, like one of the things was the Kevin, the Aarakocra at the start, as Ben said,
Jonathan,
that was it, yeah. Jonathan.
It was like Jonathan, but with an R in there somewhere. Yeah. Jonathan?
There's going to be at least one child named Jonathan this year because it does stand out.
Yeah, like that's that name, the character also that screams his name every now and again. The fact that they didn't have to point out the Aarakocra or any of the races or anything like that, they didn't just like, that's a dragonborn, anything like that was just nice. As I said, it was just, if anyone who's in the comments or in the chat who don't know anything about D&D or anything like that, you don't need to. Like, if you've enjoyed like Dragonheart, you're gonna enjoy this. Like,
I'll go even bigger names. If you enjoy the spirit of Indiana Jones or anything that is, even if you enjoyed the old Swashbucklers, or if you enjoyed any adventure style kind of storytelling, you're going to enjoy this. And it's actually maybe one of the better movies in the pantheon of those in that movie genre, especially for ensemble cast.
Yeah,
Indy brings up a good point for me, which is, and I don't know, Paul, you've touched on a little bit, the definition of Easter eggs bothered me in the reporting around this movie, because I've seen like, here's 72 Easter eggs you missed, and like, imagine you watched a Superman movie and it was like, here's an Easter egg, that's Krypton where he was born. It's like, that's just a fact. And like Indiana Jones, it's like, so in Indiana Jones, here's an Easter egg, they're Nazis and they're bad. It's like, yeah, that's not an Easter egg. An Easter egg is, and we'll probably get to it because you mentioned the cartoon. That's an Easter egg. But like that, it being a certain spell, Aarakocra being a race you can play, or
Or
Dragonborn, not
the
Easter
existence
eggs, just
of
facts of the
hither
world.
thither, if I'm saying that right, hither, which thanks to Portal, it needed no explanation to anybody. Hither tither. Can someone else say it, please?
Hither thither, and actually,
Thither.
I think that's new. Of all the things that have pre-existed, I think hither thither, because I looked it up. I had a bit of a there was a brewery in the UK that did a collaboration beer with the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and they called it Hither Thither, with a kind of satanic sort of cover on it. And I, because I work a little bit in advertising, was like, this is just lazy collaboration. Hither Thither is not even a D&D thing. Like, I hadn't seen the movie yet. So I was like, oh, what is this? Like, because there is a thing in D&D called Hither Thither, and there's an Hither Thither. It's places in the Feywild are called Hither and Thither and
Dither,
maybe
something like
dither.
that.
Yeah, they're kind of just general, kind of like, oh, he's over hither or he's over thither, but they're physical locations. But in the movie, it's a portal gun essentially.
Yeah.
Which I don't think exists as an item yet. But the nice thing about D&D and it having a digital presence is all the things in the movie are probably now available on D&D platforms for you and your characters to use.
Which I think is awesome because, we're going to have to go down ad break in a few minutes. So I'm going to save it for after that we do a little bit of the movie breakdown into some of the things that worked really well and didn't. And also to keep people interested after the ad, we're going to have to take it. I'm going to have to do this to these two gentlemen. We're going to have to talk about the 2000, it was year 2000, Jeremy Irons D&D movie very briefly to see how that compares. Because I'll tell you, it's not one that made me want to get involved in the community, whereas this is the exact opposite. But just really, really, really quickly on all of that, we haven't mentioned one very, very important thing, and that is that this movie was made by people who knew what they were doing. The directors it's the same directing pair that did Game Night, a criminally underrated movie as far as I'm concerned. You'll recognize one of them. I'm showing them on screen. Folks, anybody who's seen Freaks and Geeks will recognize one of these as an actor from that show. I felt more than I have in a long time that this was made by people who understood what they were doing, but also kept the fun in it. You know the way you can feel the Christopher Nolan gravity to Christopher Nolan films, and you can feel the James Cameron overreach and megalomania to James Cameron films? This one really felt like these two guys loved the material that they were working with.
Yeah, I have to say also the writers did an amazing job to kind of like directing, everything was just really well kind of put together. So
this is a rare movie in which I'd love to see the script, because there is so much, I'm sure, visually written down that is fascinating outside of the dialogue. And most movies you're like, yeah, I don't need to read the script. But this, I'm sure, that's where you'll find Easter eggs. If you're looking for them, go to the script.
Well, I kind of knew Easter eggs. I do watch your Twitter, so I kind of knew there was going to be a mention of Easter eggs. I have no idea. I avoid all the reporting around something like this when we're going to talk about it. So I'll get to read all that stuff tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll see, 28 Easter eggs you missed, and one of them will be like, a druid is somebody who can change form, or whatever it is. It'll be, well, these are just things, like you say, the Superman Krypton thing. But I'll be really excited to see how many other Easter eggs are actually Easter eggs that I've missed. Because it's a film that on second watching, I'll be able to enjoy it probably more, but also be able to take some time, having a little poke around the background. Because for anybody out there, and for one specific viewer right now, if you're a Rage Against the Machine fan, there's only one thing I said when the movie ended to my wife. She was like, do you think there's a post-credit scene? It's like, I don't care. I need to see the cast list because I'm pretty sure Tom Morello is in this movie. And spoiler warning, everybody. I've just let that one out of the bag. But I'd say there's layers of stuff in there. Is Joe Manganiello in there anywhere? Did anybody see any of the rest of the famous Hollywood?
not sure.
Hollywood
We should probably
gang?
go to advertisement or ad.
Yeah. All right. We will see you after the ad break, everybody. Before there was Stranger Things. Before there was Chris Pine. There was Homebrew Quest. Hang on, that doesn't make any sense. Let me start again. YouTube is great for watching Hear Us Out, but what if you'd like a bit of D&D in your life? Homebrew Quest are a bunch of brilliantly creative Irish folks playing a homebrew Dungeons and Dragons campaign inspired by Irish mythology. But even more inspired by the brews they're drinking in each episode. Ireland's supposed to be the land of saints and scholars, but it's also got drinkers and YouTubers, one of which might look a tad familiar. So get yourself over to Homebrew Quest and join the adventure. Links in the description down below, or search term Homebrew Quest. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you. And folks, we are back. I don't know if you spotted who the advertisement that was chosen for today was, but it happens to be Homebrew. So, Paul, you can't say that we're not actually advertising here. But Ben, I think you need to be the better advertisement than Paul. People are used to him. You're the fresh meat. Feel free to shill some URLs, some some socials at any point if you feel like telling people to like, subscribe, and share. It works here, and you can also tell them to do it twice. Go over to Homebrew.
Oh yeah. If you've already warmed up your clicking fingers for liking and subscribing and here, then and you're most likely on YouTube. That's where we are as well. If you head over to youtube.com/homebrewquest, you'll find our channel. We'd really appreciate a subscribe. As the guys have mentioned at the start of the show, we've just wrapped a campaign. So there is 4 years of material there for you to consume while we figure out what we're going to do for campaign 2 and the future of the show. That doesn't mean we're not going to be on the internet. In fact, I'm here right now, as case in point, doing the press junket. But if you follow at Homebrew Quest on Twitter or Instagram, you will literally just be talking to me. So I share opinions about the D&D movie, about D&D,
about Easter eggs.
About Easter eggs, yeah, a big topic this weekend. So there's a lot of stuff.
You know what you've done now? You've just encouraged anybody who's watching this or in the future. It's the same thing as saying, please don't call me X, Y, or Z. Every comment's going to call you that. You're now going to get more links sent to you for Easter eggs in every single movie. It's going to be the new curse, I'm afraid.
I'll take it on. It's an honorable role. You can just say egg or not, and then link me, and I'll let you know if it's an egg or not.
Egg or not, I like it. Oh, hashtag egg or not. TM trademark Ben. I'm not gonna let you off the hook, folks. We're back. It's time to talk Jeremy Irons chewing every inch of badly built sets and of the time fairly bad CGI. Even for the time, some of the CGI wasn't as good as it could have been. There was a Dungeons and Dragons film made it was 99 or 2000. I think it was 2000.
So
I thought it was bad. How did you guys feel?
Oh, it's terrible.
I've only ever seen it once, about let me think, 23 years ago when it first came out, and never seen it again. Never tried not to think about it. And I was like relatively young. I would have been like 12 maybe. So I like every movie. Like I've only ever walked out of one movie when I was a kid. That was Master and Commander. I didn't get it. I was a child. But
it's the lesser of two evils sometimes.
Yeah, I sat through this and I just didn't. And it would have been maybe 2 or 3 years before Paul introduced me to D&D. So wasn't that keen on it. I was like, ooh, I like game. Like the way Paul sold it to me, I was like, this sounds fun hanging out with friends. Is it that movie though? No.
That movie is the worst advertisement for anything. It's the worst advertisement for Jeremy Irons, to be fair. He's not a bad guy. He's a pretty good actor. I can only assume that craft services were making their, egg sandwiches with LSD, or somebody had swapped out the sugar for cocaine, because it's one hell of a trip.
Yeah.
Is it reviled in the community though? Paul as the longer standing D&Der?
Yeah.
When it came out, was there that feeling of, yes, finally we're going to get representation, and then walking out of the theater thinking, please, nobody watch this?
So that's pretty much what happened. People were just people got really excited that they were doing a D&D movie. They got really excited that Jeremy Irons was going to be in it. It was a big thing. It was made in 2000, and it wasn't built. I will say one thing that's really beneficial to the current the one that's out now. the community wasn't as big. It wasn't as kind of not accepting. It was more. It wasn't as easy to break into it as like, because you had to buy the books and stuff. There was no online kind of content or anything like that to kind of get books and stuff like that. D&D Beyond has made it completely simple. But when they made the D&D movie, everybody got really excited because they were just like, this is going to be representation of us. People will be interested in the story and stuff like that. But it was so bad, it felt like it had been written by an amateur DM, and then all the actors in the movie were just asked to play D&D as their character within the movie, kind of thing. So half the movie is as if the characters in a D&D game have just wandered off from the main plot and started doing their own thing, and the movie has to go with it and start making up random stuff to kind of fill in the contents and stuff like that. So in some way it's very representation of kind of a general D&D game. But when you're paying money to go watch this in a cinema, it wasn't good. And the storyline was very, very simple. Like, I know, like, the 2023 D&D movie has, like, it's got a main plot where it's like bad guys versus good guys kind of thing, but like there's like someone's family involved, and like each of the characters actually has a good detailed background and everything like that. This movie is literally just like, tyrant wants to take over the world with dragons, and it's just like, cool. So the only reason you're using dragons is because it's in the name, right? That's the only reason you're using it. And
so glad
like,
you said that, because it does feel like somebody. The only thing this movie was missing was a lot of ands, like a lot of ampersands, because they were like, what do we make? Okay, so it's Dungeons and Dragons. Right, we've got at least 2/3 of our movie. Oh, there's another. Oh, ampersand. I'm amazed that wasn't the the hero of the show, the ampersand itself, because it did seem like they just read the title and gone, I know as many dragons. Do we have Windows 95? Can we render something there? We can render a dragon. Great, let's do that.
It does feel like one of those movies, and it happens all the time, but it's a little bit more seamless at the moment, where it's like, we have this script, and we also have people interested in making a D&D movie. Can we mash them together? It's like, we also have kind of mastered dragons, sort of. Like, what are we going to do with all these dragon graphics we have? It's like, well, you could shove them into this movie.
Yeah, it's thankfully it's in the distant past now. So if you guys are okay, I'd like to talk about the movie. But first, Ben, I know you're going to disagree with at least one of these, possibly, or at least their face. I thought the casting was excellent, and I'm going to start with the druid, the great trailer moment for me, that owlbear, and the Sophia Lillis, who everybody knows from It. So It and It Chapter 2, she was the female lead, and in this, I cannot say this without sounding like somebody from outside the community, but when I think of D&D and I think of a character like her, that's the face that I would draw in my head anyway. She just has the look so perfectly, and also can act quite well. And I thought played the part quite well of, again, no spoilers here, anybody, but she has misgivings and a little bit of, let's say, a lack of confidence in certain people. And I thought she played it brilliantly, but my God, she sells it with just her look alone.
Yeah, like she's got. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, I was gonna jump in on the look alone segment, because this could be an Easter egg. So she plays a tiefling, which usually aren't sort of what you would consider human skin color. Like, tieflings can be kind of like red or blue, or I think other colors as well, but they're kind of demonic children born of demons. In some, I don't know if I've gotten that, or fiends. I always get them mixed up in D&D. This is where the rabbit hole of information goes.
Yeah.
But I know that there was some discussion in the community being like, come on, like, go full tiefling. But I think because there's potentially there's a lot of druids, which is the class she plays, that kind of have like stag antlers as an aesthetic. And I think there could be some there could be a little bit of a Mandela effect in the future, where they don't remember that they're tiefling horns, and that they just, in their head, just see stag horns.
Right. Well, yeah. And again, this is why I say I'm afraid to say these things from outside the community, because I don't know if she's a good representation. But when I see her face, she fits the fantasy genre perfectly. And because she got, let's face it, she got a very cool character in a lot of ways. She's got that character that you kind of rooting for because badass in the let's say the power set, but also not the main driver of the, not the Chris Pine of the show. But having said that, also has plenty to do. So you kind of get to enjoy her character anytime she's on screen.
She's also a little bit of the deadpan jokes. Like that's the best. She's got a lot of kind of deadpan jokes kind of thing because she's a very serious. She's a little bit different from probably the rest of the group in the sense that she's slightly more serious, which I really enjoy. But yeah, no, like Sophia Lillis had the perfect kind of like, I guess, young kind of sharp look for kind of a tiefling, or someone who may live for a very long time, kind of thing. So it was interesting to see her play it. Also, she's a fantastic actor. She's absolutely great. Like, so I enjoyed her adding to the thing because, like, as we're going to go on, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez's characters are very together, but they're also very kind of, I don't know, they're so player characters, I guess is the best thing, but they're so kind of like, they're so jokey and kind of like bumbling a little bit through things and stuff, and that having which was Sophia's character in there and stuff like that and being kind of a little bit more jokey deadpan was really, really nice, because then when you add in like what is it, Simon, yeah. Simon's character, like, who's like the other spectrum. It's like Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez's characters are in the middle kind of thing, where they're kind of semi-serious and semi-jokey, and then Simon's on the other side where he's a very good comedic kind of part to the group, and then which is Sophia's character is very deadpan, but still all of them are very funny. It's just different kinds of funny, which is enjoyable, for the whole story, for the whole party,
Well, I've thrown up Chris Pine because he's the lead. He's your star on the poster. He's the biggest face on the poster. I think he did a great job. Ben, do you have any feelings on Chris Pine?
We talked a little bit before going live. I genuinely do think he did a great job. I thought he was fantastic. And speaking of natural, in a lot of fantasy movies, when like songs happen, they make a big deal about it. Like lighting changes forever, like all this kind of stuff happens. He just breaks into the song and it doesn't feel naff. It doesn't feel cringe. It's just like, yeah, totally. You're the bard. I get it. And maybe it's because I know what a bard does and is, but I feel like for people who don't see D&D, they're like, yeah, you have a guitar, I get it. Like, well, a lute, but
I think a bard is something that, as somebody from outside of D&D, because it exists in so many other kind of literary areas, it just naturally makes sense. And the way they describe his character and the guild that he was part of, etc., etc., it does. You're right. There was no kind of, all right, it's musical moment time. It flowed in quite naturally. He's, of all the Chris's, I know everybody thinks that Chris Pratt's the cheeky chappy Chris. I think Chris Pine is the cheeky chappy Chris. For me, Chris Pratt, Guardians of the Galaxy, brilliant. All the rest. Oh, and now that I say that, anybody else get a small Guardians of the Galaxy vibe off this movie at certain times?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Wasn't just me. Good.
I have a thing about full circle. I can't watch movies without seeing D&D in them. So like when I watch Rogue One, I'm like, that's a D&D party. And like when I watch Guardians of the Galaxy, like, that's a D&D party. I can see that in D&D. But because they've come before this movie, people are going to be like, that's very much like Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, well, Guardians of the Galaxy is very much like D&D.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good because it gave me heavy vibes in that direction. So, and I guess you're right. It's just lack of exposure that makes me think, the chicken and the egg are in the other order.
And I think it's just that a lot of screenwriters probably play the game to get inspiration or even to kind of test that exact thing Paul was talking about. Every character having a different personality is hard to write if you're writing by yourself, but in a writer's room, that's where it comes out. And a D&D table isn't too different from a writer's room.
It's a very good point. In fact, time for another plug. I've seen that firsthand watching you guys in Homebrew. It really is. It's a great description of it all. I'm going to switch away from good old Chriso, though, because
do have one point just to go back to
Oh
because
yeah.
on the writing, like D&D kind of being or the D&D parties within movies and stuff. The Expanse TV show, which was originally a book, there's a character in that, Holder, who was written specifically as a paladin. So he follows all of the paladin tropes and stuff like that within D&D, but as a person in space. Like the writer was literally just like, I wanted to write a paladin, but in space, so here it is, you know. Just as an interesting kind of thing where it like they become like paragons of like character types. Yeah, so
And it does show, and it makes sense. Well, Paul, you mentioned Michelle Rodriguez, Holga, the muscle of the show. Oh, look, you guys had to sit through Jeremy Irons ruining your thing. As a guy who's automotively motivated, I was like, oh, so they're making a film called Fast and the Furious. I don't know a whole lot about it. Oh, it looks like maybe car culture will be represented on screen. I went in, I was like, oh no. Oh no, 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 no. My car culture doesn't have as nearly as much illegal activity or misogyny or bikini people starting every race. Don't get me wrong, Fast and Furious is its own thing now, and have all respect for whatever it is. So I'm still waiting for somebody to make my car culture movie. I'm waiting for this day to come for me. But Michelle Rodriguez, oh God, like she was born to play this role in a weird way. Like how? It's not that I don't rate her as an actress because I've seen her in other movies and she always acquits herself quite well. But I guess I've been tainted through so many Fast and the Furious movies with kind of the chew the scenery, whatever way they write their characters in that. Again, not picking on that franchise. But gosh, she was great. From the moment that she shows up not really saying much, she sold it. I was like, this is cool. Yeah, I'm down with her. She got it straight away and carried it through the whole movie.
yeah, she plays a good barbarian. Like she plays it well. Her introduction to the whole thing is very very violent, which is great to introduce a barbarian in it. Like it was a shocking moment. Like it was nearly as shocking as the Black Bolt moment within which goes Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
That kind of moment where it's just like, what the I wasn't expecting it to be that as violent as it was. And it's very quick, so but yeah, no, it was great. It was a really good moment, and she plays Holga Kilgore, which is such a player character name as well. Which is just she was great. It was a really good gelling kind of thing of having her and Chris Pine's characters play off each other really well. Him being the talkative bard, and him and her being kind of the quieter fighter person, but still having very good emotional moments and stuff. So
Yeah. I'm going to try and skip through the people relatively quickly because you mentioned Justice Smith's Simon, the magical member of the group. So you can tell me what class he would technically be called. So before I get it wrong and say wizard or magician or
sorcerer,
sorcerer.
specifically wild magic sorcerer. It seems they call that out in the movie. And he goes, so that was wild magic, which is a subclass of sorcery that you can play within the, which I liked. It's nice that even that information is there, and you don't need to know it. But there's me in the audience, like doing the Leo pointing. I know that thing, pointing at the screen. So yeah, and I thought he did a really great job, both as a magic caster, but also as a character more than like the magic wasn't what defined him, which I think is really nice.
I love the fact, and again, spoiler free. There's a certain amount of self doubt to his character that it's not giving away anything that's kind of open knowledge. That I think, again, like Paul, you said, the party itself, they were not just well rounded as individual characters, but the group of them together, and again, not just through skills, powers, or anything else. It was all of their different feelings about themselves, their past, their history, their future, that actually made this, D&D maybe the greatest writer's room in the world, because when you actually take the principles and then apply it to a movie, you end up with naturally a very, very well-balanced central cast. Like following this party around the place, like I say, I'm up for 10 sequels. because it just worked, and I think he was kind of integral to that. He was the one that shaped it off. I know Rene Jean Page, handsome McHandsome man. You guys can explain who he is to everybody else, but for me it was like, oh, Bridgerton guy looking Bridgerton-y again. And then I realized, no, actually they've written enough Drax into him that, you know, it made him quite fun for me too.
Yeah.
It was my favorite character in the entire movie. And it captured something at a D&D table. I was no, that's a maybe it was a spoiler. Kind of pops in, helps the party, and pops out. That's the a little bit of a role. And I was sad. I was like, no, come back. You're the best. But it does play into something that is true to playing the game, which is like you'll have your core group, and every once in a while we might be like, hey Patrick, you free this weekend? You'll come in with a character like this, and then you'll serve your purpose and go, and that's fine. So there's a true to tableness to this, which I liked.
Although he did have a great exit. Again, we can't talk about it.
Yeah,
one of my favorite moments of the whole movie. I laugh out loud when something is funny, but this was one of those ones where I was like, oh, hold it down, because I think you might be bothering the people in the row behind. It gave me the big old belly chuckle.
Yeah, that was an yeah. So he plays a paladin, which if people don't know are very kind of stoic religious people, who are very straightforward in one kind of tracked mind in their kind of oath to do things. And he plays it really, really well. Him coming in and playing it was just fantastic. He played it so deadpan, and because like the difference is with Sophia's character, she means to be kind of jokey and deadpan-y. He's so serious all the time that it's the fact that he is so serious and doesn't understand things, and that is the joke for him, which is just great. That he's like, you know, he's not telling a joke. He's just saying something, and everyone else is just like, "You're not joking, are you?" You know, kind of thing. Which is great. It was a good, as you say, kind of a NPC person or kind of a guest player coming in and kind of giving a little bit more information and kind of fixing things up. So he was a great, amazing character to bring in. With Simon as well, the one thing that I want to say with Simon is Simon's character was really interesting because the relationship between Chris Pine's character and him was so kind of like looking towards Chris Pine's character being so confident, even constantly failing and wondering why he's so confident. Whereas Simon's character was very much kind of able to succeed in areas, but not enough for him. And then still it was a great relationship character thing there where he was looking at Chris Pine's character, which was Edgar Davis kind of going, why are you so confident in everything you do, even though you haven't succeeded in anything? Which is a great relationship kind of thing. But back to kind of the paladin, the several times I would turn to my partner and be just like, paladins, man, like because throughout that whole sequence, it was just it's so paladin for everything. Him not getting jokes, him consistently being like not understanding like boundaries in any way. Like he stands really close to everybody when he's talking, and it's just because he thinks it's fine to do. Like it was a little thing.
Paul, he's just giving an aura of protection. He has to be within 5 feet of those characters.
I was as a person who knows D&D, I was when they go into a room with him. I was fully expecting a zone of truth moment, but they didn't do it, which was fine. That's a spell kind of thing. But he was a great character, and very enjoyable to come in to kind of freshen up a little bit more kind of thing, as in he was a nice character for the party to bounce off, which was great.
Yeah, look, today I'm years old when I learned that actually Guardians of the Galaxy is essentially not ripping off, but heavily inspired by D&D, because I used to say Batista is my Drax when there was an idea that he may not play Drax. Now Rene Jean Page, because the characters are similar but different. But that level of, like you say, favorite character, and the coming and going. I think that gave it more impact for me in a lot of ways. It was great, but yeah, I absolutely, for somebody who's massively jealous of people who can turn and smolder, because the guy, like, God chooses winners and losers, as it turns out, and that man is a winner. So, he shows up on screen, and my natural resentment as a much smaller man brings out hatred for him. But gosh, the character and the way he played it, I was absolutely won over, and every scene a winner. And again, humor never left. There, at no point, as high as the stakes were and tension did, tension was there. They managed to run the emotional roller coaster, but always had fun and laughs in the front seat along with you. And even his first real solid action scene, there's a hint of like, oof, but also still a smile to it all. I dug it completely. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to have to push us on to the most smug man in the history of time in all of the realms, Hugh Grant, because you're as good as you're a bad guy, I guess. Hugh Grant played, from what I can tell, what we all feel about Hugh Grant. I'm sure Hugh Grant's a lovely man, but that persona or that thing that he elicits in people, it's like, oh, yeah, he could be Forge, because Hugh Grant has that in his face.
Do you want to go ahead, Paul? I can. Okay, yeah. I like. It is that there's. It's funny when he was younger, what was coming across as like naivety. Now, as he gets older, comes across as like sinister underplaying of information. Whether it's in this movie or in another very good movie, which I won't mention because I think it's a spoiler in that, plays a character that has a little bit of a heel turn in it, very early on, but has nailed that role. I like to imagine that he called Jeremy Irons, because neither of them know what D&D is, had a chat about like, how do I? It's like, just enjoy yourself. This movie will go nowhere, and then of course this movie's great, and his Irons' one was awful. But yeah, really good performance, I thought. And nuance too for a bad guy. It's like you didn't get the feeling he was absolutely heartless,
and that came from the writers' room. Fair play to Hugh Grant, and like I said, he brought his own natural smarm to it, his smug charm. But my God, the writers' room gave him something to work with, and there's an arc there that's not only exists, but is actually you can buy into. And the words that he's given to make that be something that the audience can buy into really fucking works. Like, fair play to them. They didn't just play him for laughs, and yeah, you live and die by your villain. He's not going to steal the movie, but him, and I guess we'll go on to the Red Priestess. But I think he sold his role pretty well. Paul, did he land for you? Were you seeing Notting Hill the entire time you were watching him, or did you buy him?
No, I saw, and I don't know if this is the movie that maybe Ben's talking about, but I saw a little bit of the Gentleman thing in him, because he's in that, which I do get as Ben's saying, as he's getting older, there's a kind of sinister kind of lack of information and kind of conmanship going on. No, he's very good. I do think he was more, and I don't want to say it. He would probably be the weak. So he was a great villain, but he felt like he was hamming up certain parts a bit, and for parts of it, it was just like, I don't know if that's the character or if it's Hugh Grant doing it. That was my only parts where it was just like,
I gave him the benefit of the doubt because his character has a hot air balloon with his face on it.
Yeah,
and if that's the reality in his world,
he's ego on legs.
Yeah, like, but there's a level of there's parts in it that I'm just like, yeah, that's it was it was parts in it that I was just like, I do know that he was egotistical and stuff like that. There was another thing but it was just, there was every now and again I'd be just like, is that the character, or is that Hugh Grant is not kind of is going a little bit full on onto the kind of script or something like that? I just didn't get it. But I also was trying to figure out what class he was. which is it would entirely in D&D thing. That was because he's part of the party, and at one point, and then kind of but he, which is I was trying to figure out what class he was, and
I think he's meant to play a rogue, but he plays kind of the antithesis of any rogue I've ever been. Like any rogue I've played at the table with is usually like Ninja Batman, with a sad backstory and like does loads of damage sneakily in the darkness, but lone wolf. Whereas this is a rogue of like probably arcane trickster if I was to put a subclass on it, with charisma being their kind of main stat.
What's the closest thing to full on grifter? What's con man in D&D?
Bard too. You get away with being because you can like that high charm can be used for good or for evil.
Okay, so malevolent bard.
Yeah, I think so. That's what if I was to be a trickster in that same like to fool people out of their money, I'd go bard.
Yeah, like that was the other thing that because I always felt that Chris Pine's character and Hugh Grant's character were like two sides of the same coin kind of thing, which was really nice. But like I was trying to figure out as the D&D person, I was trying to figure out what class he would have been in. But yeah, it was he was great in it. He was a really good villain. As I said, there was parts in it that I was just like too much, but none of it took it out. Like I was ever kind of like teleported back into the cinema and just been like, I'm watching Hugh Grant. It was more just kind of like, wow, that person is like just you wouldn't be able to take him seriously in any kind of way, and I don't see how the characters in the room can. But yeah, that was it. He was great. But
and how did you feel about the rest of, let's say, the darker forces? I've just thrown up an image of Sophina, I believe was the character's name, and some of her muscle. And that I have no idea where that fits into D&D lore or how it all works. But for the story they were telling, worked really well for me.
yeah, like the Red Wizards didn't really need. She's a good silent bad guy, powerful and stuff like that. It's a good representation of villainry in the intelligence corner, as in she's pulling the strings rather than and it's very obvious. That's the one thing I will say, that the second you see her, you're just like, yeah, that's she's not up to any good.
Yeah, eye makeup always gives it away. Like it used to be beards on bad guys, now it's just eye makeup.
Yeah, but it was nice to kind of it was nice to see that character kind of be more quiet, I guess, and have a face character there, which is kind of interesting to kind of play or see. Like she's not Hugh Grant is the better villain, way better villain in the entire thing. She's just the kind of silent puppet master, kind of powerful wizard kind of character. She's very much a typical type villain, but she's played well because she has Hugh Grant's character there, kind of way. Like if you were to combine the two, you'd probably have like Cersei Lannister or something like that.
Yeah.
Very charismatic, but also very dangerous. But it was nice to see them kind of separate. But yeah, separate makes her just, just Hugh Grant was better. If Hugh Grant was just, if they just did something with Hugh Grant.
How did you feel about it?
I have to agree, and I wonder if part of the separation is to continue on the flip of the coin, because you have Chris Pine's character, you've got Holga the Barbarian, talker, silent killer, you've got Forge and Sophia, I think was her name, the Red Wizard, talker, and like it's like the mouth and the muscle on both sides, but in one case it's brawn, and the other case it's magic.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was part of just there's a nice symmetry, like a symmetrical. It's not like it's not obvious and not shoving in your face, but you're kind of like, oh, like the movie comes around on itself in a really nice way. In the way that if you were to say it to like, what I like about this movie is if I'm talking to my nephew at the weekend, he's like, tell me a story. I don't have to reach for a book. I could just talk about this movie and make it up, and he'll eat it up. He'll be like, brilliant, and I'll know because it's very nicely laid out. But again, without being obvious, where to get there and how to get there. In a way that the 2000 movie didn't, because this does a thing like you were saying, Paul. The 2000 movie kind of veers off and around. They also travel around a bit, but it never feels like, oh God, why are they going here? There's always a reason and always a nice kind of like D&D reason. It's like, yeah, you got it. Like it doesn't feel fetch questy, which a lot of movies, even Indiana Jones movies, feel like I got to go get this key to unlock this door into this skull that unleashes the, and you're like, okay, right. How many MacGuffins are a part of these red herrings and other things that you'll be doing? Because this movie has them, but you just don't see the strings.
Well,
it also.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
It also has it also has the thing of them having to go like travel around and stuff like that. It feels very, like, adding more to it. It feels very natural for the story arc to go to other places and stuff and travel around, especially the way that they're doing it, which feels as D&D people, it feels like that's what how the party would actually do it. But as a moviegoer, it still feels very natural, and I do like that there's moments where they're just like, well, we'll just go here and like we'll figure it out after we do it, kind of thing. And I was just like, it feels very real of how people would plan out this thing, because they're not like god level people or anything. They're not Batman or any like thing. They're just essentially normal people just within this magical fantasy world. They're not like Gandalf and Aragorn and stuff like that. They're people who are just getting by. So that's felt like a lot of the traveling, a lot of going to places and doing things, and where they end up is very natural in the sense of kind of like, well, this is the plan and we kind of have to go here and here and here, and even if we kind of screw up in one part, we just have to plow through it, kind of thing, which is fun. It was a fun kind of thing, which didn't feel like it didn't feel like Ocean's 11 level of kind of like intricate con artist plan thing. It was very much like, look, we just have to do it, and this is the best plan right now, kind of thing, which was very nice. I felt.
Yeah, and as a sci-fi guy who, let's, like I said at the start, I'm not a fantasy person, and it's usually because, it's not usually because, sometimes it's because there is a lack of an organic feeling to how some fantasy is written and some fantasy is portrayed. Whereas sci-fi tries to live and die on an organic nature, but usually that's what separates good and bad sci-fi from each other. And I think in this case, Paul, it's that natural, that organic feeling of this is happening because it's happening, that made it so easy for me to, again, I don't think of this as a fantasy film. It's just, it's an adventure film. I have to remind myself that this is technically fantasy. So it really, really did nail it. Now, Paul, I'm going to let you decide. We've got 2 minutes to go. If we're doing an extended show tonight,
go for a little longer.
Okay, well then I'm going to take.
With that?
Yeah, I'll talk D&D for hours.
Then, Paul, if you can set us up. After this break, we're going to talk very importantly about an Easter egg that I have to discuss. So join us for one spoilery Easter egg after this.
Cool. See you soon.
Before there was Stranger Things. Before there was Chris Pine. There was Homebrew Quest. Hang on, that doesn't make any sense. Let me start again. YouTube is great for watching Hear Us Out, but what if you'd like a bit of D&D in your life? Homebrew Quest are a bunch of brilliantly creative Irish folks playing a homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign inspired by Irish mythology. But even more inspired by the brews they're drinking in each episode. Ireland's supposed to be the land of saints and scholars, but it's also got drinkers and YouTubers, one of which might look a tad familiar. So get yourself over to Homebrew Quest and join the adventure. Links in the description down below, or search term Homebrew Quest. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you. Well, folks, the Easter egg that I must discuss, because it meant so much to me. I smiled at so many jokes. This movie had me feeling good the whole way through, but there was a couple of moments, in fact, in relation to this one particular Easter egg that had me do that kind of big kid smile, where I felt, oh, they did that for me, because I may not be tabletop RPG, but I am very much watching a lot of TV, and I'm slightly older than the other gentleman on this call, so there was an animated series that was incredibly important to me, and it was called Dungeons and Dragons, and I really wanted to know. It had a quantum leap effect to it. It's like, will these kids ever get home? And I wanted to know if they would ever do it. Well, that D&D animated series didn't come to a satisfactory conclusion, really. But it is... I'm not going to give away too much, but let's just say it's referenced. Or heavily hinted towards. And the Easter eggs that are hinted towards it, I caught instantly in the background because of a red cloak and a yellow breastplate. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder is that in the background? And then they confirmed for me, and I was the happiest kid in the cinema. I was the oldest 8-year-old in the room at that moment, and I absolutely fucking loved it. It's the magic of cinema moment there for me. Easter eggs, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That one worked really, really well.
And that's an egg. And that's a certified egg.
Yeah. We're so going to have to do graphics for that now. Certified egg by Ben.
That's a farm fresh egg right there.
So I don't know.
That's not something like, yeah.
Did either of you have a connection to the D&D cartoon? I know it's separate to the world, the TTRPG end of real D&D, but how did you feel about the Dungeons and Dragons animated series? Was it a thing for either of you?
The only thing from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon is the fact that the kids never get home, because it just ends.
That was my quantum leap reference. I didn't want to spoil it too much for anybody, but yeah.
Look, it's from like the 80s.
Good point.
So like, but yeah, it's just, that's the only thing that I've constantly thought of those kids just being locked in that, in the D&D
amusement
world,
ride, the amusement ride alternate universe.
Evidently still are. If this is canon.
But that's why it meant so much to me. I was like, there they are. Yes.
Yeah, so like, yeah, it was good. It was an interesting kind of it was an interesting, nice playback to like history of the D&D kind of I guess media, which was nice. It was nice to see. Yeah, all the kind of like the only thing was that it looked like the dwarf always looked like which is just a person in one of those like Viking beard hats. With the fake beard thing, every time I saw them, I was just like, "Come on, we've mastered, like Gimli and like the hobbits, like dwarves. Come on, you couldn't do like a little bit more on that, especially as a diehard like dwarf character or dwarf player." I was just like, I could have done a little bit of art on that, dwarf player. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. All the Easter eggs were fun, which was good. When I get to rewatch it again and kind of have a look at them again.
Yes, but Paul, where are they all Easter eggs that were fun? We've got to pass this by the High Council now, up over there.
Yeah, you got to send on anything. Honestly, get at me at a request. Any movie, let you know if it's an egg.
I'm going to do that now. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to watch John Wick and just be like, is this an Easter egg? Just directly to Ben now.
Yeah, and I'll be like, yes or no.
Yeah, but, just in the break there, I quickly looked up how many like pages of like Easter egg things there are already, and there's so many already. Like, and they wildly differ between how many there are and stuff like that. It's like the 7 that you've missed. It's like, okay, that's 7. I could possibly have missed 7. Kind of thing, and then it's just like the 20 that you've missed, and it's just like not all of them are going to be Easter eggs.
There's one where it's like 43, and it's like, this is based on a tabletop game. It's like, that's not an Easter egg.
Oh man, well let's just break into it and have fun now. Like I think for anybody who's trying to get our consensus view of our review of the movie, it is fun. It is well worth seeing in a cinema. So much so that I'd say, if you're really a diehard Nintendo fan, cool, go for the animated Mario. But I think if I was to pick a movie that I had to see in the cinema out of the two of those, my guess is going to be that you'll get more out of Dungeons and Dragons than you will out of Mario. I think it'll look as good on a TV as it does on the cinema screen. Having said all that, if it's not your thing, you're wrong. That's the thing. Dungeons and Dragons has nothing, and this is me as the outsider, it has nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game, unless you want it to, or that's your thing. So it's a fantastic movie. I was really worried that it was going to go the other way, and I was going to have to talk to both of you, and this was going to be really awkward. But it's cool. Like, are all three of us on the two thumbs up here for this?
Yeah, I've an asterisk in that sometimes because I think this movie is going to get a lot of hype that you can send someone into a movie overhyped.
Fair point.
This is not going to be a cinematic game changer. It is a solid, like 80% popcorn flick. Yeah. Don't expect too much. Don't expect too little. Just go in expecting a good time and you'll have it. But you're not going to go out of there being like, that changed movies forever. There's no bullet time here that's going to like bleed into parody movies or anything. But I would recommend it. If you're watching this in the future and it's not in the cinema, I think it's as fun at home when you can go to the bathroom, you can grab yourself a drink and some popcorn. Like if you've got a good system, I happen to go to quite a bad cinema, so the sound wasn't all that good. And I think when the sound's bad, action scenes kind of feel a little bit like meh, they're a little bit muted. But because this was so visually engaging, that didn't matter. So even if you've got a crummy little cinema, support them. They probably need it. But when I say crummy, the sign for the movie was at like, I was like, I guess we're and dragons. But it will be just as good with the. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a movie with your kids are like 7, 8. It's PG or 12A. Like this could be one of their favorite childhood movies.
Oh yeah. I'm actually, Ben, I'm so glad you said that because I hadn't even thought of it. I think there's a generation of kids that are going to see this now, and this is going to be significant for them going forward. Because it's not Citizen Kane and The Matrix all the time that leave the huge impression on people. Cannonball Run left a huge impression on me. It ain't Citizen Kane in case you haven't worked it out. God bless Burt Reynolds, but it ain't. So yeah, I think that's really, really interesting because I think there will be a generation who see this movie and get an awful lot from it because it is the essence of happy movie entertainment.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so on the Mario side of thing, I think people are going to see Mario and they're going to go, I wish I saw like Dungeons and Dragons. So I think we might see a resurgence of kind of the numbers within the thing. I think the opening weekend of Mario is going to create another flood towards the D&D movie because I that's just my opinion anyway. Yeah, I do think this is a movie that you're going to enjoy and going to be happy that there might be a franchise coming with it. Especially if the movies are in any way like up to par with this one. But yeah, it's not Oppenheimer from like, Chris Nolan or anything like that. You are going to enjoy it. From two sides of the coin, as a D&D lover, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy those little Easter eggs, the actual Easter eggs, kind of things. You're going to enjoy you're going to be enjoying being in the cinema and knowing a little bit more than everybody else. It is in no way going to enhance your viewing of this for the story or anything like that. It's just a good, playful story, good characters, fun things. You can see yourself and your party members and stuff and your players stuff in this movie, which is great. You can be just like, that's John. That's definitely, John would definitely do that, kind of thing. And then as a moviegoer, it's just a good escapist movie, as Ben says. It's just a popcorn movie. Like, I actually have a feeling that they should start reducing all the advertisement of Dungeons and Dragons part of the movie and start increasing the honor amongst thieves part, just so that they can get the second wave of people going, no, I'll go see this, kind of thing. It's a D&D movie. I wish they make the Dungeons and Dragons part a little bit smaller.
Agreed.
In the advertisement kind of thing, because I really feel like it's gonna. The second wave is definitely going to help us, but I definitely think they're going to pushing it forward. You're going to have to be just like, it's not like a closed gate movie or in any way. Just go watch it. It's just fun.
Well, I've kind of 3 questions I was going to put, or a potential 3 questions I was going to put towards you. And one of them was, do you think, it's a bit of a leading question, do you think the groundwork between the year 2000 and the year 2023 the year of our Lord 2023, has been done by Patrick. You touched upon like bards existing, so like the Witcher series exists out there. Very popular peers of ours in homebrew, really very popular stream Critical Role. Have an animated cartoon of which you don't need to see their stream on Prime. So with that in mind, do you think there could have been a better time to release this? This is what I mean. It's a leading question. I'm kind of answering my question. What, with all the information I've just put out there, what do you guys think?
No, well, quite literally, I don't think there could have been a better time, because I think if this had been released around, Stranger Things season 1, which was looking back at a period in time where I'm not going to put it on either of you guys, but we're in the nerd group. I'm in a few different nerd groups. Car people are car nerds. We're movie nerds. We're D&D nerds. Whatever it might be. And I think like the war is over. The nerds have won. We're the cool people now. How did that work out? It's all great. But you look back to the olden days, and Stranger Things did a little bit of that. And it opens on D&D as what it is, friends, creativity, and the idea of storytelling, which then leads to the idea of storytelling there. I'm glad this movie didn't come out then. So not only do I think now is the right time, I think even recently where, Critical Role and everyone else, yourselves included, have, really raised the bar and pushed the water. All ships have risen together in D&D. It's not a dirty word. To some people, there's still prejudice there. There always will be. And I Paul, to your point, I think that's where there'll be a percentage of people that won't see this because it says Dungeons and Dragons in the title. And that'll be their loss. And hopefully it's not a big percentage anymore. But to your question, Ben, I cannot think of a better time, because it's almost just the right after the right cool down period, or maybe what was the apex of pop culture, Dungeons and Dragons, kind of big renaissance in this age, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit different. So from a movie perspective, this couldn't have come out at a better time, because Marvel currently is not doing well.
Yeah.
The movies around us are not doing well. If this came out when like Avengers or like Endgame or Infinity War came out, it would just be buried in the sense of like things. It's good that it came out in a period of time, like not, and this isn't in any way deflecting about how good the movie is. It would just other better movie, like more popular movies would have been out around us, which would have caused the numbers to be down. The fact is that from a movie's perspective, because Marvel haven't been in as well, DC are in their kind of chaos mode right now as well. All the fun movies like Maverick and Everywhere All at Once, like they're showing kind of like they're having indie escapist popcorn movie moments kind of thing, that this came out at a really good time of kind of that going up. So like just from a movie person's perspective, it's come out at the perfect time. From a D&D perspective, it could have come out for the popularity of D&D. It could have come out like 2-3 years ago, and the D&D community still would have loved it. But as a moviegoer, this year is probably the best time that it goes out, because this opens the door to everybody who's just looking for that fun movie that they can just enjoy. And this is probably one of the most perfect times that they could have it, because it's too far away from Avatar. It's not right after Spider-Man, because Spider-Man was really, really good. It's at the end tail of the Marvel movies.
Well, can I adjust my answer ever so slightly? Just I would say 2 weeks from now, or like 1 week from now. I really wish Mario wasn't coming out the week right after it. I'm a little bit annoyed by that, because I like looking at the numbers. Dungeons and Dragons is probably not going to even break even theatrically. Just what it cost, what it's made, what the usual projections are. It's probably not. That's the business side of things. But I think it will be popular enough, critically well enough received, and make enough money on the ancillaries on the back end that it'll not be seen as a failure. And I think Mario is going to be one of the biggest reasons that it won't be able to do that. Because even if, critically people are loving and hating Mario right now, it's Marmite. But I just wish that maybe D&D had followed it after everybody realized No, Mario is the one where you have to be into it to enjoy it to its max. And then D&D came out and people are like, you don't have to be into it. It's just a great movie. So yeah, now, except maybe 12 days from now. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great, really good answers. And Paul, you brought up a thing about the community maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think you're spot on, because a lot of the D&D community, especially content creators, are going through a rightfully holding like the parent company of all of this to task, because there's things happening outside of the movie and the entertainment industry. And don't get it twisted. Entertainment industry isn't just movies; it's video games, and now, as we see the rise of D&D, tabletop games. And so I think 2 years ago was the perfect spot there, because they weren't in hot water. Now you could do an entire show, if not a week of shows about that. So I won't get into it. I'll leave the audience. I want to ask you guys with this question, but part of me thinks just after the first Pirates of the Caribbean, before the Marvel movies took off properly, because this is also getting a little bit of criticism for like Marvel dialogue, which has just become a thing, right?
Yeah.
This sort of like witty comments, but like at the expense of maybe the seriousness of this. And I think people who say that don't realize this isn't a serious movie. It's not. That dialogue doesn't work when half the fucking planet gets wiped out. Like, it does work when it's like, yeah, we're just fighting some dragons, casting some spells, having a good time, drinking some mead in the tavern. So I only thought about the pirates thing as you were talking. I was like, you know what, that for me in my life, that would have been a great time, because I was just getting into D&D. The movie wouldn't have done well, but I would have loved it.
It may have been able to, excuse the pun, surf the wave, though. You're right. It could have been another opportune time for something like this. But I think the important thing is something that's made with this much care and attention, love and respect, and as we keep going back to, has identified that it's entertainment. It's not teaching you something. It's an entertainment. I think it stands a good chance of being successful from a critical point of view, no matter when it came out. Part of me, and that's why that 2-week thing is a big deal for me. I would love if this was a huge financial success, because there are so many things that make so much money that don't deserve it. Whereas this one, just for the sake of this end of cinema, because not everything should be everything everywhere all at once. Not everything should be of one cookie cutter style. It shouldn't all be Marvel. It shouldn't all be indies. This is an underserved area in the, the big pizza pie that is film going experiences. So Ben, you had a couple of questions for us. I'm digging where you're coming from.
I had a couple of questions, but I picked one for the interest of time, about the lead way and the groundwork done by other media, and by audience behaviors. Like, you'll look stuff up afterwards. You don't need to explain to you. The internet exists. We're not in an age where this is your one and only chance to get this information across. The other two, if there's a sequel, sure, we'll talk about, because the same questions will apply, I promise. And I will remember them. I won't even write them down. I'll definitely forget. But if there's a sequel in a couple of years, then I'll ask those questions then.
Yeah, I'd like, actually, there's an interest. Lisa has pointed out the fact that weren't they still releasing, like back then, kind of sequels to the 2000 Jeremy Irons D&D film? They were. But I do have a question for you guys. Do you think that the 2000 D&D game or movie may have landed some groundwork for this one, in the sense that we're now able to essentially, we have a bar to compare it to? So like, you can, like, even if it wasn't like as fun of a movie, you'd still be comparing it back then to that movie and just being like, it is still better than that one. That's what I feel anyway. So what do you guys feel? Do you feel like 2000 D&D movie really kind of helped this?
Ben,
or is it big enough in any way to?
I'll go first, because I can say very briefly. I don't know if it actually helped in that kind of way that, there was an old Captain America movie that was terrible. There's like all of the Marvel stuff that had ever been done before Marvel went broke and sold everything off and then came back with their great rise to power with Disney. I don't know if any of those helped, but I do get where you're going with it, Paul. No, I don't think it helped, because it's irredeemable. I think it's done more damage to everything, and probably Jeremy Irons' teeth. I'm sure he's still picking parts of the set out of his molars. What about you, Ben?
I agree with both of you, which is a lovely place to be. in that I don't think it did anything, but I don't think it did anything in a big scale. But I think in a smaller scale for people who were playing D&D back then and went into it with like, oh, finally a movie which suddenly makes the conversation of what is D&D a lot easier, and it ended up being dog shit. And it's like, oh, great. I think there has been a collective global sigh of relief. It's like, at least there's not like, you can't make a D&D movie, because that's like a thing about a lot of franchises think you love. It's like, sure, but you can never make a movie of it, and this proves you absolutely can. And not only can you can successfully do it from an entertainment point of view. Maybe not financially yet, but I think might have a little bit of a grow to it. And what we're feeling there, Paul, is just a collective sigh, like after Spider-Man 3, when the next Spider-Man movie came out, and you go, oh thank God. Because I brought people to Spider-Man 3 thinking this one has Venom in it, it's gonna be so good, and just embarrassed that I was into Spider-Man at the time, and being like, I'm so sorry, my friends. Like, I thought it'd be good.
Yeah, I definitely do that. On the Mario thing, I think this is going to destroy Mario. I think people are going to go see Mario. They're going to go. That was such a waste of time. I should have seen D&D and then go see D&D. I think this will.
They'll probably think the earlier Mario movie was better. Actually, man, I wish I rewatched that with
Hoskins and Leguizamo. Wow,
yeah.
There's a nice parallel there between the 2000 D&D movie and this one, and the original Hoskins Mario and this. Oh gosh. Paul, I love your optimism. You know me, I get cold and detached when it comes to numbers. I can never let my emotions cloud what I think will happen financially is nothing to do with what I think should happen financially. So personally, I hope you're right. I really do. I feel that.
I think word of mouth from, because it got released the week before, is gonna keep it going, and then the second that people watch Mario, they're gonna be like, I should have gone into that other cinema, kind of thing. So I do think that, which is a pity. I really like Jack Black. I really like Charlie Day. I really like
Anya Taylor-Joy is in it. Like, yeah.
There's so many good people in it. Just another comment, just because we can also do it for the SEO. Bowser, Jack Black's Bowser suit, fantastic, man. I really want that suit. If you haven't seen it, definitely look it up. But yeah, so was just any other questions or anything like that anyone wants to?
No, I think we got to head towards wrap up, and I'm just going to say that there's something else about this movie that's the gift that keeps on giving. There's so much YouTube content of Hugh Grant obviously not knowing anything about D&D and being asked questions along with the rest of the cast. It's gold. I'm feasting on that in the run up to this movie. I was just enjoying his kind of, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah, there's a lot of fun and these are great people. Yeah, watch the movie for sure. And if you can't get to see the movie and you're going to have to watch it in streaming, in the meantime, while it's fresh, enjoy watching the cast be asked questions, especially if Hugh Grant is there, because it's clear that he hasn't done anywhere near as much homework as anyone else on the panel. So Ben, we have a tradition on how we end these things. We usually say things like, I've been Patrick, and then it goes on to the next person. So I think if you could start us off with an I've been Ben, then we can get to our wrap-up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been Ben.
And I've been Patrick.
And I've been Paul.
And collectively tonight, we've been Hear Us Out. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you for inviting me on.
And
this has been amazing.
I'm going to get your URL back up there. Everybody get over to Homebrew Quest. Get them on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. Importantly for us, comment down below. Let us know how this having a guest on worked out. If you're all going to comment to say Ben was the best part of the show, maybe he can just take over the channel from next week, and you'll have my resentful looks staring at you every time we meet. Then Ben,
that is fair. If anything, they'll say it was easier to watch and listen to when there was just two of you. Ben talks over you a lot, and that is true.
Not at all. So that's us this week. Everybody get out there, watch Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Paul, I'm going to let you say goodnight.
Are we going to, just quickly, are we going to do a Mario version of this with Ben as well, just to add more, like, or are we going to find someone else? We're going to find, like, some Nintendo person, just because we've got a
my uncle works. My uncle works at Nintendo.
Yeah,
and my brother's.
I was so worried you were going to go, my uncle's an Italian plumber. I'm like, I'm not buying it, Ben. Not buying it, dude.
Giovanni, my uncle.
Some guy with a mustache who does not know why he's been dragged live onto the internet to be like, Ben, well, what is going on? I'm not doing
Who's
the Mario
Ben?
Italian accents because that's going to get enough people in trouble this week, I think.
Yeah, because, you know, Chris Pratt can't do it either. Anyway, I've been Paul. We've been here. We've already done that part, which is like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Comment down below if you've liked the movie as well, and if you want to see more guests on the show, which should let us know. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time, next Thursday. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.